Alright, what's up YouTube? This video here is for Executive Snakes. He wanted to know, like, the whole breeding process with corn snakes. Granted, this is my first year of breeding corn snakes, so just, if I screw up along the ways, just don't take this as it's the right way to breed, because there are many people that do it differently from what I do or from what other people do. So this is pretty much my 20-gallon long tank, and I put just some newspapers down at the bottom of it, and I also stick a water dish in there, which most people, they don't do that, which I do. And this is pretty much the tank I use for breeding. And then I put a nesting box in there for the female. After if I can witness them locking up, then I usually take the male out, and that's pretty much it. And obviously you need a male and a female to breed, and these are some key examples I'm gonna be showing him pretty much of what to look for in a male snake when breeding season starts. For corn snakes, pretty much breeding season is all year round, but typically when late November towards the beginning of December, people usually cool their corn snakes down or whatever, and then they start heating them back up in the middle of January. Towards the end, they slowly warm back up, get some mills in them, get them all nice and fat. And the typical response for a male corn snake when he's going to start breeding is, I don't know if you catch this, but I'm just stroking his back and he'll start to twitch. And that's usually a nice telltale sign of indicator that he's ready to breed. And with their water dish, you'll also see them stick like the tail part of their vent in the water dish to start cooling it down so they can get ready into the breeding process, which I don't use my snake rack for breeding purposes for them, only for the simple fact is that they're only 28 quart tubs and it's pretty small. I don't have a breeding rack right now, so that's why I use a 20-gallon long tank, which seems it did just fine this year for them. And with the female, which is her, like an indicator, like when you go in for breeding, just stick a lay box in there for them, and when she's ready to breed, she typically goes into that nesting box and digs holes and hides in there all the time. And before you actually pair them up, make sure she sheds and he sheds. And most people, they'll put Walmart meal into them, let them digest it, do whatever, and then throw them together. And then it usually takes it really depends on the female. She'll go into a pre-lay shed, which will be all white. Then you got 30 days after that or so, or however long she decides to hold the eggs before she drops them. The most important thing, though, is to leave a nesting box in there with her. And I mean, there's like dozens of things that people do for their nesting box. Some people use moss, some people use vermiculite, some people don't even put a nesting box in there for them, because they just let them lay the eggs on their own and then pick them up afterwards. You will get slugs if it's her first time breeding. I'm not saying you will, I'm not saying you won't. I mean, it all depends on the female. I mean, you can use moss Eco Earth. I mean, you know, whatever you want to use for the nesting box. I mean, this is my female leopard gecko, but I mean, I use that Eco Earth stuff in there for her, but that's just a moist hide box for her. And then pretty much, and then obviously you're gonna need an incubator and stuff like that. You know, when the eggs do get laid, I mean, you know, I got 5 good eggs, whatever. I mean, it works for me. I mean, I wasn't like, you know, bound on like having like 20-30 eggs like, you know, the first time she laid, but I mean, it works. That's like the best advice I could give you. I mean, you know, if you don't think my advice is good enough, I mean, look on other different YouTube channels about breeding snakes, and most of them will pretty much typically say the same thing I know, because that's where I got most of my tips from, was from other YouTubers, and that's about it. But I'd like to give a shout out to Executive Snakes though, because, you know, he's doing good. He loves the reptile trait, hobby, whatever you want to call it. You know, he's doing good. He wants to run his own business, stuff like that, be like BHB or whatever. I mean, I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to run a business here, but I mean, you gotta start small. You gotta start somewhere, and you know, it all just takes time. But I'm out.